I'm Aaron Matus with D1 Ticker and AthleticDirctorU, joined today by Scott Dolson, the Athletic Director at Indiana University. Special moment for me, being an IU alum. Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thanks, Aaron. Thanks for coming back.
We wanted to talk to you first and foremost about your tenure here, because although it's not unheard of, a little bit of a non-traditional climb to the chair in that you didn't have to leave. You've been at IU for so long, and I imagine there's some advantages that comes with, maybe not the least of which is familiarity with the landscape across the entire department, but just wondering what other advantages maybe come with being so familiar with the IU athletic department.
Yeah, Aaron, that's a great point, because the reality is I really never planned on staying here that long. I didn't think I wouldn't, but I also didn't think that wasn't my career ambition. But I was very, very fortunate that every time that maybe an opportunity presented itself that I was going to leave or explore something else, something good would happen here, which was really, I feel very fortunate. Being an IU alum,
yeah,
you know what that's like to be able to stay home, which is great. You know, the advantages have been that, you know, having been here so long and taking over at a time, particularly with the pandemic, I can't imagine being in a place where I didn't know already really all the strengths and weaknesses of the department, knowing all the people, understanding how the university operates. You know, I think that's tough in a normal circumstance when you come in from the outside. But if I had been an outsider, again, looking back to all we've been through since I took over 18 months ago, all of that familiarity with the people in the university and the department have been huge for me. Big advantage.
Yeah, you did not get a soft opening to this with the pandemic, right into NIL, changing college landscape. Curious if you've thought of any disadvantages that maybe came with not seeing other schools, other conferences, and how other schools are doing it.
Yeah, one of the things that was really important to me, particularly, it's been important throughout my career. Maybe that's why I've always been here. But it was really, really important as I interviewed for the position that I never want to be one of those people that's looked at that he's always been at Indiana and he knows the Indiana way and he's kind of he lives in this vacuum. And so I've always prided myself on that. Well, particularly as I interviewed for the position, maybe a disadvantage for me was that I didn't want people who were in the decision-making process or the president, which obviously is the ultimate decision maker, view me as where I was. I wanted them to view me as where I could be. And so I had that approach through the interview process, and I was really sort of relentless about that. And I still am to this day. I really challenge our staff. I want to know what's going on around the country, what's happening. I want to make certain that we're on the cutting edge, that we're not living here in our own little world. So that's really important to me.
You did 11 years as the deputy. Mm-hmm. Was there anything on your agenda or things you hoped could happen at IU that you couldn't quite get done until you took the athletic director chair? And if so, what were those things?
First of all, Fred Glass was incredible. I've had so many people come into my life or into my career at the right time and help me. And so Fred was incredibly helpful to me. I can't imagine being better prepared for this position if I had an opportunity to work for anyone else but Fred. But having said that, you're always thinking if it were you, not to second guess Fred or anything, but what would you do? And one of the things that I always looked forward to if I had that opportunity was to build a team, and part of my job that really gets my adrenaline going is kind of building a farm system within the athletic department and watching young staff grow, and again building that team. And so I always look forward to that. The second thing that actually Fred and I talked about over the years, and it was something that I really emphasized during my interview and really made a key priority for me, is really our women's programs. You know, women's excellence is something I've always felt that we've been on the cutting edge of really taking our women's programs to the next level. And we formed this Women's Excellence Initiative right after I started, and I think it does a lot of things to really elevate all of our women's programs. And I think we're going to see that success over the years, and that's something that I'm really, really excited about. I know you're talking to Coach Morin later about women's basketball, and I think that's just one example that we can really emphasize. This Women's Excellence Initiative will take us to new heights from a women's perspective.
When you have an initiative like that started, I assume it only helps when you put the new volleyball facility in, and then a program like women's basketball is making national headlines.
For sure, and again, back to Fred Glass, I give him so much credit for his vision from a facility standpoint. You know, we grew our facility footprint tremendously during his tenure. At the same time, one of the things that is equally as important, if not more important, is having the right people around. And so what we're trying to do now is make certain that we're investing in putting the resources behind the people to make certain within these facilities we can do great things for our student athletes and with our student athletes.
So this is your second year on the job. Are there still things that you're getting familiar with being an athletic director? And that might be hard to answer because you're getting curveballs.
Yeah, there's lots of, it's funny because I do feel that it's everything that I kind of thought. I feel very comfortable and I felt comfortable taking over. But I guess, Aaron, if you ask me what the biggest adjustment has been, is from a time management standpoint, I have continued to try to make certain that I put my time and energy into the right places. And I'm a fixer. I like to do a lot. I've always been someone who's kind of jumped from thing to thing and task to task or problem to problem. And what I've tried to do is that, particularly in my position now, I've got to make certain that because my time demands on me. Like I've talked to Tom Allen a lot about this as head football coach. When he became head football coach, he said the thing that changed for him was just how much people needed him for different things. He had to really work on his time management. And I feel like that's what I've been really continued to hone in on, is making certain that I'm at the right place at the right time and doing the right thing at the right time.
There's only a certain amount of time in a day. That's tough.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. You could ask my wife about that.
Yeah, I bet. So you mentioned Fred Glass. I don't have these memorized, so pardon me if I have to look at my list.
Good.
You said you were going to keep his 5 priorities. We looked at those up. Play by the rules, being well in mind, body, spirit, achieving academically, athletic excellence, and then integrating with the university. Mm-hmm. Love them. Mm-hmm. But what we noticed was 4 of the 5 are pretty easily measured. Mm-hmm. What about number 2, which is the being well in mind, body, and spirit? How do you keep tabs on that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Aaron. And I really think the key thing for us is it's really twofold, is that first of all, it's putting our money where our mouth is, putting our resources behind making certain that we have the programming and the ability to make certain our student athletes are growing in every way, in addition to athletics and academics. And with our Excellence Academy, I think we've got an incredible niche where whether it's career development, whether it's leadership and life skills, whether it's our mental health awareness and all of the resources we put into that, I think we've got those resources there. But the second thing is that it's really important to us that we are really engaged with our student athletes beyond the obvious. And again, I give our Excellence Academy staff, Maddie White, our SWA, Lisa Winters, who oversees that area, that we've got so many different opportunities for student athletes to be involved in leadership groups, be involved in ways that I feel like we've got a pulse of our student athletes. And I feel that we've created an environment that they feel comfortable in coming to us and talking to us and helping us understand where we are in that priority, so that if there are areas that we need to maybe change our focus or increase our resources, we'll know that because of that really letting our guard down and makes our student athletes can talk to us. And that really helps a lot in that priority.
When it comes to mental health, we actually just spoke with Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren, and that's something that's important to him across all campuses. Does it help having leadership from the top when it comes to monitoring some of that?
For sure. Yeah, Commissioner Warren's been fantastic in emphasizing that. He did it from day one when he took over. It was one of the things that actually during my interview for the athletic director job, and since then, it's been a priority of mine and ours. We formed a mental health task force that really is charged with looking into really not just the resources we put into mental health, which is important, making certain we have the ability for student athletes to have a path to go to if they need resources. But at the same time, we felt like the entire department needed training on what to look for from a mental health standpoint. It needed to be beyond just providing counselors or the vehicles to help our student athletes, but we needed to make certain our strength coaches, our academic advisors, anyone that is around student athletes had training so they knew the telltale signs to look for to say, hey, maybe Aaron needs to talk to someone. I noticed something different. And if you're not trained in that, you may miss that. So it's been really important. And Commissioner Warren has set the tone from the top, which has been great.
When we look at your climb to the athletic director chair, we'd be remiss to not bring up your time as a student manager here under, of course, the legend Bob Knight. Mm-hmm. What have you taken from your time under a leader like that you can use as a leader now, and maybe it's what not to do, given the times were so different when he was here as a coach?
I'll say this, Aaron. There's no question in my mind that, and this sounds like maybe the company line a little bit, and I don't mean for it to, but I draw on my experience as a manager probably every day in my job, and it completely prepared me for life beyond a student at IU. And I try to do the same thing for our student athletes. But for me as a manager, the work ethic, the ability to prepare, just being around a successful program like that, just instilled things in me that, again, I draw on every day. But I think, more than anything, one of the things that being around Coach Knight in that program, and not knowing I'd be an athletic director someday, but for me, as I work with all of our programs in the athletic department, I think I have a really good feel from that experience on what it takes to build not just a program that can win one season, but to build a winning program in all aspects. And I draw on those things that I witnessed and was a part of in all of our meetings with our head coaches to make certain that they're building a system. And part of it is it's a recruiting philosophy. It's a philosophy in how they develop their student athletes. It's a philosophy in how they're going to prepare to win and play to win. And then really character development. And all those things were things that, as I was a part of Coach Knight's program, even though it was just a manager, I had an opportunity to see that. And again, I draw on that every day in my job today.
Coach Knight's obviously a huge part of IU lore and tradition. And it was a big deal when he came back to Assembly Hall in 2020, just before the pandemic. I'm curious because I'm an IU guy, and I know what the past means to people, and it's important. The candy stripes, Assembly Hall, Bob Knight. How do you balance celebrating the tradition with also the pressures of modernizing facilities and game day fan experiences?
Yeah, it's really important to do both, and I think about it a lot. And part of it is you could look at it purely at times from a facility standpoint. So Simon Skjodt Assembly Hall is a perfect example of that in terms of there's so much tradition and feel in that building. And when we renovated the building and when we met with Cindy Simon Skjodt and her family, we discussed how can we preserve the feel of that building but modernize that. And I think we did a good job with that, because I think I've had people say when they come in, it feels like, if they hadn't been there in a while, it feels like Simon Skjodt Assembly Hall, but it definitely is modernized. Well, we try to do that with a little bit of everything. It could be whether it's the game day experience, whether it's football or women's basketball or men's basketball. The modernization of that is maybe a little more canned music, a little more of this and maybe less of that, but to try to mix that so that fans don't come to the game and feel like, well, this doesn't feel like IU. And we try to do that with a little bit of everything we do around the department, because as I said to you, I'm paranoid about looking forward and trying to understand what's happening around the country and what does the modernization of college athletics look like. But at the same time, not everything will work here. And so trying to make certain that you balance where we're headed with what fits here. And you have to mold it into a workable situation. And so I think half the battle is being cognizant of that you need to be on the cutting edge, but you have to really make certain you're blending into where you are and knowing what works here.
It's not a unique situation at IU. There's schools that are dealing with the same issue, concept, whatever you want to say. And it's also not unique that you're an hour or so removed from a major metropolitan area. So does it add pressure to that scenario, given the fact that you've got people that drive from Indianapolis for game day experiences? And I think you kind of hinted at a little bit, being like, you don't want a fan to come in here and say, this is not the IU that I remember.
Yeah, it is. There's definitely, maybe pressure is not the right word, but there's a real emphasis to make sure that when people come to our games, that, number one, they have a positive overall experience, and a lot of that is driven by, at times, how the team plays. But outside of that, everything we do, we've got a feel for what it means to come to Indiana. And we think about that a lot. And in that tradition, there are things that, I call them like comfort foods. Sometimes when you come to a game here, whether it's the William Tell Overture at the 8-minute timeout, or whether it's the cannon going off, the Martha the Mop Lady, there are things that happen that I think people feel like they're home. But at the same time, with things that we can add in, we used to really never have halftime shows. We'll mix in the Frisbee dogs.
Yeah.
People tend to, you can say, well, that's maybe too professional, but people tend to like that entertainment now. And we're trying to do things using the video boards. Video boards were all, new at one point, and we were maybe slow at utilizing them maybe the way we can, and still can move that forward, but to blend that into what it means to be in Indiana. So that balance is really important to us, for sure.
Well, we certainly appreciate the time. A lot to think about as the athletic director here at Indiana University. He is Scott Dolson, and I'm Aaron Matus with Athletic Director U. Thank you, Scott.
Hey, thanks, Aaron. Really appreciated the opportunity to be with you.